now that we're, I think, the Olam of Rishus the Rav, I think we want to hear a little bit about your relationship with Reb Chaim as well. I mean, after we just did Tshuva, so now we want to hear a little bit of Chaim about your relationship. If the Rav doesn't mind, we still have like 50 minutes to Marav. Right. So the question is, at what point do you want to start telling the Olam that, you know, when you're in yeshiva? So I think
like when I was in yeshiva, once a week there was a shir called Maaseh Noiro, stories about Gdolei Israel, and most of the stories was about Reb Chaim. And I was young kid, and I was mamish fascinating by all these stories. And one day, the Rav told us that Reb Chaim wrote Sforim, and I like Sforim very much since the day I know myself. And I asked the Rav to bring me all Reb Chaim's Sforim. So a day later, he came to my room in yeshiva, and he wrote me all Reb Chaim's Sforim, whatever he wrote at the time, 30 years ago. And I saw, it was exactly on the same time that I finished learning the Mishnah Berurah. And I saw that Reb Chaim has sefer, Mishnah Berurah type, called Derech Emunah. And I was very fascinated by this sefer. It was so amazing. Until today, by the way, I'm still fascinated by this sefer. And I started learning it Kaseder. And I wrote many hagoyes, corrections, seores, tiras, whatever. Now I skip a few years later. I got married, and I entered the kollel where they learned Hilchas Shmita, because it was Shnas Shmita. And one of the Sforim we studied regularly was Derech Emunah. So, first time in my life, I decided to send Reb Chaim a letter with comments on the sefer, even though that I learned this form of Reb Chaim Zatzal for several years. Until my wedding, I had never seen him in person. So, I sent Reb Chaim Zatzal a letter with comments on his sefer, and even though I said to myself that surely Reb Chaim, because his greatness and age, would not take the time to reply to letters from some unknown person named Tiger, but still I sent the letter, and to my astonishment, Reb Chaim Zatzal sent me back a postcard with answers to all the comments and questions, and wrote to me at the top of the postcard something like, I really enjoyed your comments, and I hope you will continue to write to me. Well, not only did he respond to me, he also wrote a line of encouragement in the response. So it motivated me to continue writing, and I sent another letter, and Reb Chaim sent me another postcard, so it worked like that for 4 postcards. After which I decided that I had to know who I was corresponding with and see him face to face. Therefore I decided to go to his house in Bnei Brak. I got there after Ma'ariv. I waited in the line for about half an hour because there was a huge rush of people arriving. And when it was my turn, Reb Chaim asked me, what's your name? And I said, Tiger. He then asked me, which Tiger, from the letters? And I said, yes. As soon as he heard it, Reb Chaim directed me to sit and started conversing with me and learning. And since then, Baruch Hashem, the relationship grew stronger and stronger, and I would come to him with 10 corrections on his forum, and then with 20 corrections, and then with more and more, both comments and learning and many other corrections, until it became official that I was the proofreader of more Reb Chaim's forum. When Reb Chaim Zatzal printed a new sefer, or he wanted to reprint a new edition of his previous forum, he would ask me to go over the sefer because he wanted it to be more pure without mistakes in the printing. In the first years that I was doing this, Reb Chaim Zatzal didn't trust me so much, and every correction I would show him, he would himself open the Gemara or the Medrash or the Chazon Ish and check that I was really right. But after a few years, he already trusted me and would insert my corrections more readily. My relationship with Reb Chaim Zatzal grew stronger day by day. He would take an interest in my personal life, and he would also tell me personal things about himself. Although the whole world knows that Reb Chaim Zatzal rarely spoke, I merited to have him speak to me a lot. And besides the many hours I would sit with him and talk thorough topics, he would often tell me stories about the great men of Am Yisrael and his Rebbe, the Chazon Ish Zatzal, some of which I had the privilege of documenting in films that were published around the world. I will tell you one story to illustrate what Reb Chaim Zatzal thought of me. After he had a stroke in 2006 and was at Maine Yeshua Hospital, I was very worried and wanted very much to visit him. One day I arrived at the hospital at noon and wanted to enter his room. When one of Reb Chaim's family members saw me, he stopped me from going in, saying the doctor said nobody besides family should disturb the Rav as he gets better. But I didn't give up, and I arrived at the hospital the next day at noon because I really wanted to see with my own eyes how Reb Chaim was feeling, and I was very worried. The Rebbetzin was sitting by the room talking to a few other women, and I took the opportunity and slipped into Reb Chaim's room. When the Rebbetzin saw me, she immediately came over to stop me, but Reb Chaim said to her, leave him, he is my friend. Still, I didn't want to burden him, so I spoke with him a few words of encouragement and blessed him, and I left. By the way, you need to know, when I came to Reb Chaim, I found him studying his regular daily schedule of learning. He then learning is the Rambam in Chestumat Tzoras, because with Moran Zatzal's Choyves there was mamish no day off. I clearly remember that he then learning the Rambam in Chestumat Tzoras. Stroke or no stroke, his choives had to get done. This was Reb Chaim, even though that all this was mamish when he was paralyzed in half of his body. To learn with Reb Chaim Zatzal and be so close to him was a tremendous privilege for me. Yet Reb Chaim Zatzal treated me as if it was me that did so much for him. Truly amazing to see the perspective of a Gadol B'Yisrael. What else can I say?
Keep going.
Let's think about something.
When he came to visit you, you have to mention that he visited you.
Oh, okay. So, because of his tremendous gratitude for me, Reb Chaim used to come to Yerushalayim, as you know, 3 times a year, only 3 times a year. And when he came to Yerushalayim on Chol HaMoed Pesach, he would make 3 stops: the Koisel, Rav Eliashiv, and Uri Tiger. I have had the privilege of publishing 7 sforim so far with Siyata Dishmaye, 4 on which more Reb Chaim Zatzal wrote comments on the pages, and the most important is my Sefer Ledovke B'Tshuva on Rambam's Laws of Tshuva, that for a period of 3 years, Moran Zatzal took the trouble to write for me over 2,000 comments. This is the only Sefer in the world on which Moran Reb Chaim Zatzal wrote comments on the margin of every page, from beginning to end, and especially on such a large scale. And all of this because of the tremendous gratitude that he felt. I also published 81 videos that are only small testimony to the many hours I will sit with Moran Zatzal and spoke with him and learning, because I wanted the world to see what Moran Zatzal looked like when he was speaking and learning, and not only when he says buha and greets the public for blessing. Look and see an interesting thing. The very last video I posted was on the very last day of Moran Zatzal's life. Just as the filming ended, so did the life of Moran Zatzal. Who knows? If anyone wants to ask something, I'm right here.
The one in Christ Chassid is,
Again?
you see if we should do Chassid now, right? So they're working on Rita Chassid.
Right.
I want to hear about his Rita Chassid anyway.
Reb Chaim was one big piece of chesed, meaning the most precious thing of Reb Chaim, for Reb Chaim, was the time. Every second in his life was used to sit and learn. And even though the most precious thing in his life was the time, he was mafkir his time for Klal Yisrael, meaning he had 4 times a day, in the good times, he had 4 times a day Kabbalah Skol. Each Kabbalah Skol was half an hour. And he went every day to Sunday Coast. Sometimes it was 5 times a day in the morning for Sunday Coast. It takes time, you know. He told me, and there is a video from this, that every day is answering 120 letters. Let's just do be'er. You know, let's say 5 questions a letter. You know how much questions every day just to write the name of the sender, and it takes time. All these things are taking time. And even though the time was the precious thing for Reb Chaim, he was mafkir his time for Klal Yisrael. It was the one big piece of chesed.
Why buha? Why did he switch to buha instead of bracha v'atzlacha?
Because he didn't have enough time to say all day long bracha v'atzlacha. It takes too much time.
Did you ever heard the story about the Gvir that came to him and Reb Chaim said buha, and he said he wants like a bigger bracha, so Reb Chaim said buha?
No, I wasn't there at that time.
By the way, there's one thing that I wanted to mention what Rabbi was sharing is that and Rabbi, I tell people all the time, I told Rabbi that you be the honor that you are, and I'll be your Baal Gaiva, because I was Baal Sani here in America for many years. When Rabbi first came to Reb Chaim, and he walked into the room, and Reb Chaim did something that was very uncharacteristic. He asked him his name. They have to remember, if every person that came to Reb Chaim would ask him his name, who would be the least of the concerns. So that was a chiddush, because by asking him his name, that was the Pesach for him to really get to know where Uri was. And Uri will tell you now also, it wasn't just the overnight thing. Like he said, sit, and that was beginning the relationship.
Because usually people see my videos, and they think that one day I just knock on Chaim's door, and suddenly we sit and learn together for 2 hours. So it wasn't like this. It took something like 5 years. Reb Chaim was in early 70s, I was in my early 20s. And it's very difficult for a person, especially if he's a Russian, to develop relationship with someone 50 years younger than him. So it took 5 years, Lemaise. And Reb Chaim at the beginning, he looked to me, like, who are you? What do you want from me? You came to waste my time. And it took him a long time until I understand that I'm not serious about the story. And therefore it became two different Reb Chaim. He suddenly became so warm and shared with me details about his personal life. And he took care for my children, boys and girls, to put them in the best mosques in Yerushalayim. It became family. It wasn't anymore just about the learning. It was mamish family. But it took time.
And when did the Gaboyim, with the Derech Chachma, when did they realize that you weren't just, oh, here's another guy coming to Hakim Chaim or Chaim?
Reb Chaim Einekes did me not so easy life in the first years when I sat with Reb Chaim. And every time that it took so long, so they tried to tell me, maybe the Rav doesn't comfortable. The Rav is sitting like here. If he doesn't comfortable, he can just say, No, but they understood it's not comfortable to the Rav until one day, when the Reb Chaim printed the Rechochme, he asked me to go over the tikkunim that he already has on the Sefer, and to circle whatever he already write on his Gillian, to make a circle on it. So he told me to go to sit in the balcony. I sat over there, and then Reb Chaim had a thing that he didn't step to the balcony only on Sukkot. That was the only time in the year that he was coming to the balcony. And right now, after he finished with the Kabbalah school, he went to the balcony. It was on Sukkot for sure. And since then, the Gaboyim says, if Reb Chaim came to the balcony for you, wow, so probably it's something special. And since then, it stopped bothering me.
What's something shocking about his personal life?
So it was, depends. Usually it was something about his health. He used to tell me, the doctor just been here today, and my blood pressure is like this and like this. B'derech klal it was stuff about the brius, his health. That's usually.
How many hours did you sleep a night?
Not so long. He used to go to sleep on 10:30. He woke up at something like 2:30. And after lunch, he took a nap for half an hour. That's usually.
What about his relationship with the Rebbetzin?
Wow, that was amazing.
You said initially, you told me last week that right away it was very hard for the Rebbetzin. You told me that Rabbi Yoshev would send her letters.
That's not for here, story.
Oh, really? We're mature.
No, I can tell you one thing. I can tell you the other story, not this story.
Sorry.
When Reb Chaim didn't like that the Rebbetzin is leaving the house and going to Bnei Brak, he said that he learned much better when the Rebbetzin is in the house. That's how he felt. But sometimes the Rebbetzin needs to leave. So Reb Chaim, what he did is he went behind the car who took the Rebbetzin until the car was vanished. Until the car was so far, then he came back home. He was so emotionally attached to the Rebbetzin, he couldn't leave her alone. Yeah. He never ate any lunch without the Rebbetzin. It was a rule. Without the Rebbetzin, no lunch. Nothing at all. Not only lunch, supper, breakfast, the same. No food without the Rebbetzin.
Was he a different person after she was in there?
Again?
Was he a different person after she was in there?
Yeah, two different persons. Unfortunately, he took it very, very seriously. And since then, all the Yerida began. But before the Rebbetzin passed away, it was different Reb Chaim. There were three Reb Chaim in his life. There was the famous Reb Chaim that everyone knows. And there was, after the stroke, it was different Reb Chaim. And after the Rebbetzin passed, it was the third Reb Chaim. It was three types of Reb Chaim.
And even when he got sick with COVID, that was sort of a schwab later, but then, it's really, again, I said not for here, but whatever, it's like a lot of the shyness that were sent to Reb Chaim afterwards, it's hard to know who was answering them. Was Reb Chaim, base Reb Chaim, there's a lot of...
Don't involve in politics. I'm not
I'm
there.
there.
Okay, thank you for here.